Oh, yeah, we are. 2 seconds. Yeah, we are live. So happy Wednesday, everyone. Today we have the legend that is Mr. John Andrews on the interview. John's kindly taken 20 minutes out of his day to talk about his experience working with me in the 1% so far. By my account, John's absolutely smashing it, but I want you to hear from the horse's mouth. Before we kick off, John, do you want to introduce yourself, who you are, what do you do?
Yeah, certainly. Thanks for having me on the podcast, by the way, Luke. Yeah, I'm John Andrews. I'm a solicitor. I'm a partner of the firm called JMW, who are based in Manchester with a City of London office. And I'm the head of the London office.
Busy man by all accounts, right?
Yeah. So I've got there are 200 people in the London office, 60 partners. So yeah, they keep me active and they keep me busy.
Keep you on your toes, yeah, for sure. Cool. Well, look, let's have a chat about you and your journey with working with me and the 1% so far. So I think best to start kind of at the beginning. I think you probably followed me. We'd had a chat on and off for probably knocking on a couple of years actually, but let's rewind, say 4 months into the past. You'd seen a few of my bits, decided to reach out for a chat. What was going on back then that made you decide, right, I want to reach out and have a chat with somebody like me?
Yeah, well, 2 years ago, I took over running this office. Prior to that, I was head of the corporate team here. And by the nature of my job, I do a lot of entertaining. I'm out at lunchtimes with clients, I'm at events in the evening. And when I was just running the corporate team, I could control how much time I spent doing that. When I took over this role, it became a lot more demanding on my time. Meant I got less time to exercise. It also meant I had a lot more people wanting me to attend events. I could be out eating at lunchtime and in the evening sometimes. And I suddenly noticed that my suits were getting a little bit tighter. I was squeezing into my jeans. Yes, I still wear them at my age. And I was walking past. I got to the stage where I knew I had to do something physically when I was walking past sort of shop windows and not wanting to see the curved outline. So I actually thought, right, time to get a grip on things. And for years, I've gone to the gym and exercised. So it wasn't necessarily that I wasn't active, but I just needed more of an incentive to get my diet right and to be more committed to an exercise regime. And I'd seen you on LinkedIn. I'm quite active on there, and just what your posts are direct, to say the least. But they hit a note with me, so I thought let's have a chat to that guy. And there were lots of people that have contacted me through LinkedIn, but your sort of approach stood out really.
Okay. And I think what you're describing there, John, it's a pretty common with the gents that I work with, which is life, business, work going pretty well. But that I guess the kind of work at all costs are going hell for leather with that. It's compromising your ability to take care of yourself physically, mentally, and so kind of that the net result of that is you walk past the window and go, who's that? Like what's happened there? And this sort of weird knowledge that I sort of train a bit and I kind of know what I need to do, but why isn't it working? And I can't get the consistency I want. And I think the reality is operating manuals and things that may have worked 10 20 years ago with less responsibilities, family responsibilities, work responsibilities kind of worked, but then you get to a point where you've got so much going on, you're like, well, I know one way to try and address this, but I'm doing it and it's not working, so what do I do? And for me, I think that the core part there is, of course, part of it's looking what you put in here and making sure you're doing some exercise, but with the sort of vicissitudes of life, work, business, and everything else, there's so much more going on that feeds into your ability to do that. And I think it's been able to take a step back and look at what's going on holistically. I think where most guys get stuck is like, well, I'll just train a bit and eat a bit less. It's like, yeah. I mean, technically that makes sense. But if it was working, we wouldn't be having these kind of conversations, right?
No, I think that's right, Luke. And probably, if I talk to anybody at work or my friends about, what we've been doing together and about the whole program, they'll some people say, well, it's not rocket science, anybody could do that. If that were true, I'd have been able to have lost the 5 kilos that I've lost by myself. The differences and what I really needed was some accountability, B, a change in my mindset, I think, about my whole approach to eating, exercise, taking time out, being mindful, giving a bit more time to my family, and actually realizing work's important, but not at all costs. In terms, my health was were suffering a bit, and the time I was getting with my family. So it's much more than just, eat less and do a bit more exercise. And it's also much more subtle than that. And like the way the program works and how it builds up is a really important part of the process, I think.
Yeah, and I think what you said there is important as well, because I hear it a lot. You'll hear it on the course from the gents saying, "Go, well, what you're asking us to do here is rocket science." We've probably seen most of it, and the reality is that's true. But if it was that straightforward, everyone would be walking around jacked, happy, with no dramas, right? And is that the case?
Yeah.
You just have to look at your peers and everyone else. It's not, is it? And I'm not saying that because I've got some magic secret sauce. It isn't magic. There are fundamentals, but I think the way that we do that and how you apply that often, especially the sort of gents I work with, like yourself, driven, full on, doing very well. Like, we kind of tend to go all out 100% at something. But that approach with what's going on with life doesn't work anymore. And so it's like, well, we need to change our thinking and way of operating. Like you said, it's like work is incredibly important. You've got a lot of responsibility. But if you're kind of doing that at all costs and not taking care of yourself, what ends up happening is yourself and others get a diluted version of you. And so the thing that's really important ends up suffering, but because you're putting too much effort into it. And so it's about just having a bit more balance, right? And being able to spread that appropriately for yourself.
Yeah, I think that's right. And also, for me, it's quite a public role. I'm more or less the face of the London office.
Yeah.
So how I present myself and what I look like, I think probably reflects on how people think I approach work. I think that is an important part of it, and that was another motivation to actually get myself back into decent shape, really. And like I said, the programs were good, and what I really liked about it was that there was nothing silly. And it starts off with the real basics. Get your 10,000, your non-negotiables, as you call them. Get your 10,000 steps in a day. Do your body weight exercises, and then build up gradually. And initially I was thinking, well, hold on, I go to the gym 3 times a week. I've been lifting heavy weights, but I thought to myself, well, if that worked, would do the trick, I wouldn't be talking to you. So following it, taking those sensible initial steps and building up was what I really liked about the program. I guess the other thing that's really important, I guess, for people to understand, it's not just about a training program and what you do in the gym. It's sort of it changes your mindset a little bit. So I until we started doing this, I couldn't have told you what the 6 flight of stairs look like in this office for me to get up them, because it never crossed my mind to use them. And you suddenly think, I am going to get off that tube station early and walk the last mile into work. I am going to use the stairs, because you want to get your steps in, and those little things add up massively.
Yeah, I think that's a real powerful thing, and we talk about a lot in the program. I say it in the gents, I say it as well. That whole concept of being the sum of the parts, right? And those little things, because I think you think like, well, what's that going to do? But little things compounded over time are incredibly powerful, both in business, in work, but also for yourself, right? And so those little things, like, well, okay, you walk up the stairs once a day, or once ever, not going to make a difference. You do that every single day, twice over a year, well, you suddenly move your body a load more and you feel a bit better. And so if you apply that thinking across the board, across a multitude of factors, well, then you start to be able to look and feel and show up as you want, just as a byproduct of building a life that works for you, versus I'm just going to smash it in the gym 3 days a week. Well, then what happens if you can't go to the gym? You're screwed, aren't you? You see what I mean? So it's having these other fundamentals that serve you outside of that, right?
Yeah, well, you know what, you've hit the nail on the head there. Tuesday night I came out of work. I wasn't going to be able to get to the gym. I thought, well, I'm going to walk from where we are, just outside Bank Tube, back to Waterloo. So that gets a few of the steps in. I'd walked in the morning, and just those little things, A, mentally make you feel a bit better, but B, you think, well, I've done something today, and they really add up. Whereas in the past, there's not a cat in house chance that would have happened.
Yeah, and then you go, oh, woe is me, I can't train, that's it. It's like, well, is that true? And I think that's the other thing. It's that switching that mindset. We go, well, I can't do that. Well, what can you do? And there's usually a whole load of stuff you can do, but often our ego, or we don't know. This is that whole thing. Well, I know what I need to do. Well, if you knew what you needed to do, you'd be doing it, and you're not. So, well, it's just that one of the gents in the current program is like, I'm too busy to do something. I was like, can you do 5 push-ups before you get in the shower? Yeah, I can. Well, see, you can exercise then, can't you? Well, 5 push-ups 5 days a week is better than 0 push-ups and never. Now, I know we're just talking about exercise here, but again, having that sort of mindset. That being said, if we fast forward to today then, John, what would you say has been like your key achievements so far, having come through the process for where we are.
Okay, well, look, for me, mate, at the outset, and it isn't just about losing weight, but that was the main
A big
motivator
driver
for
for
me.
sure.
Yeah, I want, and also, I want to stop buying bigger clothes and start getting back into the ones that I'd had made 10 years ago,
Yeah.
and I'm pleased to say that's happened. So I'd say the biggest achievement is losing the 5 kilos. I want to lose a little bit more, but I'm really happy with that, mate. And mentally, it's made me feel a lot better about myself. It makes you feel a bit more confident, when you stand up in front of people, when you're talking, and it's generally made me just a lot happier in life. I feel better about myself physically, and I think when you feel better about yourself physically, mentally, you start to get stronger.
Sure.
And that's a good place to be. And so now, rather than sort of worrying about how much weight I've put on, I don't really worry about that. And the other thing I'd say is, coming back to how sensible this whole program is, the important part of it is the camaraderie that you get with the other people that are on the course with you at the same time. And we've now got our own little WhatsApp group on the side of the main group. There's some great connections I've made. They're good lads, but you're all in it together. So when you get to Christmas, and you're going to come off the wagon a little bit in terms of the eating and the exercise a little bit, you're not beating yourselves up, and you get through that, and we're all now back into it together. But there's a decent friendship group that's come out of it. There is lots of support and positivity if somebody's having a tough time, or they're finding it hard, they're not losing the weight they thought they wanted to do, or they're not getting there are differences with work or with family. So it goes beyond just being about fitness and about diet. It's about mental well-being. It's about suddenly realizing you're not the only person doing these types of jobs that experiences insecurities or has a bad time at work. You can share this with the guys as well. And that sounds a little bit sort of lovey-dovey. It's not my normal sort of thing, but it is an important part of the process.
Yeah, I think that what you said there is really powerful. And we touched on this a fair bit on these kind of chats as well, where when I initially chat to some guys, they maybe miss the fact it's a group for most of the guys that I work with or whatever else. And then I'll say it then, it's a group process. And they're like, oh my God. And I think one can think that, well, what am I going to get out of hearing other people? It's me. I need to sort it. My problems are unique and I'm special and I just need to sort this and it'll all be fine. What that mindset misses is the power and value you get in hearing others like you described. And it's not we're all waving our knobs around, we're all amazing, nor is it we're all climbing into our cornflakes, stroking each other. It's just that shared experience. And when you hear someone else who's relatively senior doing what you're going through, going, fuck, I've had a bit of a struggle, but then I'm doing this, that's empowering because you go, oh shit, it ain't just me. There's other people that struggle like this. And so you realize you're not on your own. But then you see others taking ownership, thriving, and pushing through that stuff. It's empowering as well because, well, if he's doing it and he's got a similar setup, well, I can fucking do it as well. I think that's a real positive place to be. And I think there's a lot of power within that process, which often I think people can be blind to. But especially like you said, as blokes, we're not great about talking about our feelings and being open about this. But if you've got a place where you can do that safely and you're confident to do that, I think it just pushes you on, right?
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, and you see these guys. There's some guys on the main group that have got they've got some big jobs, and they've clearly all been through the same sort of process. And they're not adverse to get on the group sometimes say, do you know what, I've had an absolutely terrible day at work today, or bad weekend with the missus. And actually just letting off a little bit of steam in that group is a good thing to do. And we do the call obviously once a week, and even in our little group we've sort of we do a call every 2 or 3 weeks on a Sunday afternoon. So it's all of that just adds value to the whole process, and it's more, as I say, it's more than just a training course. So we're gonna get together, I think, a couple of weeks time. I've taken a box at Wimbledon Football Club, so I think about 5 of us, and we've never met in real life. So
yeah, well, that'd be cool. And that's the other thing. That's coming in the pipeline as well this year. Just as an aside, there's going to be 1% events where we meet up in real life. But what I love is what you're describing is through the community that you're part of and the process you've gone through, you've got some shared experience with guys because you want to meet up. And like the sort of people where you might not necessarily have done that before, but I think having a shared experience where you're working on this kind of stuff together, we're all there being our best. It brings a level of commonality where you're like, actually, there's you connect with people on quite a cool level, just if that makes sense. And I know I was invited to the box. Sadly, I've got to coach you lot, so I can't come. But I'll be at the next one. But I think for me that just speaks volumes as to the work you guys are doing on yourselves, but also the power of being in that kind of collective experience, right?
Yeah. I think that's exactly right. And I think if look, for me, the whole process has been a positive one. I have to say that, and I'm not saying that just because I'm on your podcast. I've been what I've loved about it is the results physically and mentally have come without a massive conscious effort. And to be fair to you, that's a testament to how the program is structured and how it works. You start off gently. Because listen, mate, I love your posts on LinkedIn. I get myself in trouble a bit at work when I like some of them because they're a bit fruity,
a little bit spicy. Exactly. Yeah.
But and the impression people can get is, I've got this, badass fitness coach who's pushing me to the limits. In fact, it couldn't be further from the truth, mate. I mean, you are behind the LinkedIn and Instagram persona. You actually have a sensitive soul, mate, and what you do is you coach us through the bad times that we're having, or when we're feeling that we've not done what we should have done, and you say, do you know what, that's all right, that's going to happen, but you know where you're heading to. That again is an important part of the process. So I wouldn't want people to think that, if they decided that they were going to do what we've done, by we I mean the people in our group, that they're settled in for,
a beastie.
Getting aerobic in every Tuesday if they've not done their 10,000 steps or been to the gym 6 times a week. It's not like that.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because I think it's that people want accountability, and I think people are quite accountable. And my posts are quite forthright because I want to make it a point about being direct. But that doesn't mean you can't be compassionate and meet someone where they're at. And actually, me just calling you a dickhead for not doing something, how does that help anyone, right?
Yeah.
Because the key question is why. And just like at work, let's say something goes wrong with your team, right? And something's happened with a client, and something's gone slightly wrong. You wouldn't chastise the person, sack them, and fire the client. You'd be like, well, let's find out what's going on here. Let's understand, right? Well, the same with ourselves. So if something hasn't happened, I could shout at you and say, do better next time, might work. Or I go, why? And they go, oh, well, X, Y, Z. Well, straight away, we start to pull the thread and we can address the reasons why the thing didn't happen.
Yeah.
And more often than not, the gents I work with are pretty good at beating themselves up for not doing stuff anyway. So again, it's not about being cuddly, but it's about being fair and objective. And I think a client said this a while ago. He said it's that combination with kind of like arm around the shoulder, come on, with a little foot up the arse sometimes when you need it. And it's that balance between the two. And I think I'm glad that that's what you said there, John, because that's what I like to promote. And more often than not, in those times of adversity when it's stressful, you've had some stuff going on. We don't have to share it, but the thing that you work through. And I've gone, not being trite, this is an opportunity to show yourself we can make hay even in amongst the difficult times, because that's also when we learn. And so it's fostering the mindset of the obstacle is the way. Yes, there's some challenging stuff happening. So we can either roll over and be a victim or go, no, let's get our hands dirty. What can we learn? And I think, again, that's just a more, I believe, an empowered way to operate within these situations. Because for me to say, when someone works with me for a couple of months, a few months, whatever, it's all going to be perfect and I'm going to fix everything, it's absolute crock of shit. It won't be. Life is going to happen. Work's going to happen. But it's how we react and deal with it. And for me, I think as a coach, there's a syllabus of work we need, of course, but it's also empowering you to be able to thrive within that and learn from it. I think that's also, I believe, a core part of the process. Does that make sense?
Yeah, listen, I agree with that entirely. And I think that if I was trying to describe how this is different to, say, doing a call to a personal trainer now. So look, I've gone to the gym for the whole of my life, and generally speaking, I have gone, 3 or 4 times a week. Generally, let's say it's 3 times a week. That wasn't getting me where I wanted to get to. I signed up with a couple of personal trainers. You can do your 1 or 2 sessions a week. That's all fine, but none of those had the results that this has had. And the reason for that is the combination of the accountability, the small changes that actually I will now carry forward with me for the rest of my life, in terms of, just small choices you make about when you're going to eat, what you're going to eat, but without being ridiculous, without beating yourself up. If sometimes you do want the fried breakfast, all those sorts of things. But there are lots of small changes, physically and mentally, that I implement on a daily basis now, and choices that I make. And you get to a stage where you make those choices subconsciously now. And they just become part of your daily life, your daily routine. And it's those things that actually can make a bigger difference than sticking yourself in for a 2-hour gym session every day.
Yeah, I think that, and that's exactly it. And that's why, I mean, the business is called the 1%. Part of it is a bit of ego. Yeah, let's be the top 1%. But really, it's all those little 1% you're talking about that add up. And if you start to compound those,
Yeah,
the results are where you are today. Well, look, John, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting. I know you're a very busy man, so I don't want to take any more of your time.
yeah,
Before we get off, let's say someone's watching this. Perhaps they were like in the sort of headspace you were, a few months back when we had our first chat. They may be on the fence about engaging with a coach, talking to somebody like me. What would you say to someone who's in that kind of space?
What I would say to you is that look, I looked at your LinkedIn post for probably a good year or so. We'd had a couple of conversations, and I kept thinking to myself, "Oh, do you know what? I don't think I really need that. I can do it myself. Doing this has been one of the best value things that I've ever done, in terms of it's made changes in my lifestyle, mentally and physically, that I will carry forwards now for the rest of my life. So look at it in that perspective. Yes, you should do it. Yes, you can afford to do it. And I've got absolutely no regrets about doing it. I will talk highly of doing this program to anybody who asks me about it. There's a couple of colleagues at work I think you might have spoken to, have made inquiries. Take the jump and do it. It's absolutely well worth it.
Thank you, John. Well, it's a pretty good endorsement if ever there was one. So thank you very much. As I said, really appreciate you taking your time. If anyone's watching this, I'm sure they got a lot of value out of that. It's been really helpful from my perspective, and hopefully for anyone watching. If anyone is watching and they're interested in having a chat with me in terms of how I can help, drop me a note in the comments or find me a DM. John, I think you're a legend. Obviously, we're still in the process. We're still working on some cool stuff, and we'll continue with that. Thank you for your time, and see you all next time. Cheers, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cheers, Luke. Bye.